We understand a nurse in California, after taking the first vaccination shot, was then tested positive for the virus.
It's the timing. It's too short.
What do you mean by that?
That means your body needs some time to develop an immune response.
Right.
It's after the first dose only. So soon after she actually had the dose, she picked up the infection. And she may have actually been incubating at the time that she had the vaccination done. So one shouldn't read this as though it's a vaccine failure. You have to wait for the vaccine to work. And it takes time. That's the other point that's important for the public to understand.
For example, the Pfizer vaccine specifically, you need to take 2 doses 3 weeks apart. And after the second dose, it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for the full immune reaction to develop. So that means a total of about 4 to 5 weeks after the first dose is given. Now, in between that time, that individual is still susceptible to, of course, exposure. And that's why it is important for us now in Singapore, for us to roll out this vaccination program. Because when you roll it out in a situation where you have an epidemic, you have a lot of cases, then the situation that you had mentioned in this person in the US may occur, because you are trying to vaccinate while the virus is circulating. It's much better to vaccinate when you have very little virus circulating, such that if a virus should be introduced in the future, you have a population that is immune and is then prevent any outbreak from occurring.
There are studies showing that the vaccine can cause cancer and also effects on our health.
So at this point, there's no evidence that this vaccine will result in such a side effect. I mean, most of the side effects that we have seen from the studies are mild side effect, and also the one that is known, which is the severe allergic reaction in people. The mRNA component itself does not incorporate into our human DNA. It, in fact, after about 48 hours, just dissipates in the body and disintegrates. So there's no evidence at this point that there's any such concern.
I'm 73, I have high blood pressure, I have diabetes, and I have poor kidney function. My concern is that I will get worse side effects than a healthier person.
I think Annie has raised a very important point. But it's precisely that particular group of individuals who are older that have the comorbidities that she mentioned that tend to get more ill and tend to have a higher mortality. And it's specifically this group that we hope will take it up and get vaccinated.
Over in the UK, after the vaccination is given, the doctors are monitoring patients. They have them stick around for a period of time, 15 minutes, they'll monitor them. I mean, is that something we plan to do as well, Minister?
For sure. We will be monitoring very closely everyone who is vaccinated. In fact, the authorities are looking at data, not just from Singapore, but they are monitoring data from the vaccination program everywhere in the world.
Clinical trials, when they did the Pfizer vaccine, quite a number of those individuals were in fact individuals with comorbid medical conditions, because these are the target group for the vaccines because of the complications. And of the many millions of people who are vaccinated now, in the UK, the US and elsewhere, there's a huge diversity in terms of age, comorbid medical conditions, etc. So there is a wealth of data showing that the vaccine is safe.
It's impossible for us to know what are the 3 to 5 to 10 year long-term effects that it will have. Like, for example, if and when I want to have kids, will it be harder to conceive?
Like any other drug, vaccine, we will have to, of course, monitor over the longer term to see if there are any rare side effects that might occur. But at this point, there's no evidence that, for example, ability to conceive would be an issue.
How concerned should I be about long-term side effects?
The likelihood that there will be long-term issues, I think, is very remote. To play it safe per se, we have not recommended that if you are pregnant at present, you will take the vaccine. Wait until after you deliver before you take the vaccine.
I guess one of the concerns is also because things have happened so fast. There is concern that the vaccines may not be as safe as what was traditionally the actual clinical trials process.
Right? The reason the companies have been able to shorten the process are twofold. Number one, we are in a pandemic. There's no shortage of volunteers wanting to come forward. Perhaps not in a country like Singapore where the virus is not raging, but in UK, US, there are no shortage of volunteers coming forward. They all want the vaccine right now, right? And number two, they have been able to get these trials going on a concurrent basis, not trimming back, not compromising, but in parallel, and therefore shortening the time. So that entire process of validation, testing, trialing, looking at the data has not been compromised a single bit.
But as we are talking about this, a new strain came about. What's the point of taking the vaccine?
Yeah, well, mutations occur all the time. So far as we can tell, it seems like it probably would still work. It's being actively tested. And we'll know very soon because more than 2-3 million people now in the UK and the US have received the vaccine.
One of our bioinformatics expert, Dr. Sebastian Morrisroe, he likens mutations to like the different number plate or color of a car. The same make, same model, different license plate. We see many of them all around the time. And sometimes, you might have a car with new tires, it might, be a bit more efficient, move faster and so on, but it's still the same make. At this point, there's no evidence that it has changed to another make, another model, another brand.
I'd like to know if the government would help to co-pay my medical bills should I get any severe side effects from it.
Well, it's a very relevant concern. In fact, not just for COVID vaccine, but for any vaccination program. After we've authorized, we've verified that it's safe and effective, one can never rule out the possibilities of a very rare and serious side effect occurring. It will be very rare, but it may happen. So we've been looking at this and we think that there is a possibility of putting in place a vaccination injury assistance program where the government comes in for such instances to help pay for the medical cost associated with it.